my goal in dating is to make sure that whoever is in front of me, I am helping her feel safe and
Hmm.
loved by Jesus and myself. And in order to do that, it requires a lot of intentionality from me and
Hmm.
setting expectations clearly. And so this is something that like I learned as I went along. I was worse at it at the beginning, and then Carrie got maybe a little more refined version of it, but still not perfect. Yeah, still not perfect.
Okay, hello and welcome to the Christians Who Date podcast. I am coming at you from Austin, Texas, with Kalli and Lauren, who are not here with me.
Yeah,
But
it's sad.
Not
One
in the
day.
flesh, but on the podcast we're here.
that's
Not
true.
a
You're
solo
virtually here
episode.
with me. But I did bring some other Austinites to back me up today. I'm so excited. We have my friends Dane and Kerry. They're here
Let's
to talk
go.
about dating. They are married. How long have you guys been married? You can introduce yourselves. Tell us
A
about
year and a
yourselves.
half. It'll be
Yeah.
2 years in October, so we're like almost a little past year and a half right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Yep.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, a year and a half into marriage. Let's see. I met Dane. Dane was actually one of the first people I met in Austin. Fun fact. I think at like a Bethel like young adults thing.
That
And
sounds about
then
right.
yes, he's like that tracks. And then I met Kerry so Dane and I were like in the same life group, and then Kerry, yeah, you got married, and then Kerry joined, and Kerry is like one of those people who's like good at adult friendships, like like she's like so intentional, and so Kerry and I feel like we became friends like quick for me because she was so intentional about like hanging out, and she is an amazing question asker, which is saying a lot because Kalli and Lauren are great question askers, and Kerry's right up there. She might even be above us guys. Like I don't know.
Come on.
I believe it.
Happy to have
Wow.
you.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it's like a growth compliment because I think that would not have been true before we got married. I feel like I became a good question asker because of Dane. So that's great.
Really?
Aw.
I love
That's
Oh
that.
my
super.
gosh. I feel
Yeah.
like you were really good the first time we hung out, so you must have learned fast. So,
Yeah, we
because
had
I
the
was
whole
like,
dating
wow, this
process
is.
too, so there's a lot
Oh,
of time.
that's true. There was that too. Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to have them on because Carrie, they're both honestly super intentional people. Like I talked about, Carrie is really intentional in friendship and like yeah, just loving on people and getting to know them, and really like she's just one of those people that like really cares. And then Dane also is super intentional. Like you'll hear their dating story, but I was listening to him and I was like, Dane, you got to come on and talk to the men because you just were not hanging out. Like you were like, okay, let's, how do I date well? How do I meet people? How do I not just like meet anybody, but like somebody who I could actually spend, like my life with, and who has the same values. And I just was, yeah, I'm inspired by the way that Dane went after dating. And so I was
No,
like,
that's
we got
good.
to have these guys on. Pretty much since the first episode, I was like, we got to have Dane and Carrie on. So
Awesome. Wow.
yeah, this has been a
Yeah,
big
thanks
build
so
up for
much.
me.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. We're excited to be on and kind of jump into these questions and stuff. I think Kira and I both love like I love dating and the process of dating and learning
Great.
how to
We
Big
hate
fan of
date
it.
dating.
because
Love
the
dating.
point was it's because it doesn't stop, right? So that's the point.
Mm.
You don't just learn how to date and then stop doing it. Like you have to continue to do it as you're married and as you go along. So it's a skill set that you actually take with you throughout your life, or that you should take with you throughout your life. So not that we're like pros at it or anything, but yeah, we're excited to be here.
Yay, good. Okay. Oh, and this is another fun fact we figured out is Lauren and Dane were in ministry school together in Northern California. The one that Kalli and Lauren and I went to.
That was
but they
like
were there the
12,
same year.
13 years ago. We're ancient now.
Yep,
Crazy.
that's
Dude,
right.
we got old.
Children.
We got old.
Yeah. So, small world, that church world.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're still burning for Christ, so I think we're doing okay. I mean, I hope you are, Dane. I don't know. I feel good.
Yeah.
about me.
I love Jesus. Yeah, I still love Jesus.
So glad to
Carrie,
hear
I
it.
don't know. You can attest.
Yeah.
I can attest to both of these guys still burning for Jesus
Still
after
following God.
after a bi-monthly life group meeting with
That's so
them.
good.
Okay, so let's just jump in. We're gonna start to ask these guys some questions about their background, and don't worry, you'll get to hear the story of how they met, and hopefully you'll walk away with some practicals on how to be intentional in your own dating life. And I know the guys out there are like, finally a man can
Am I the first
represent.
guy?
No, we've had guests on, but it's a lot, the three of us talking.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, you are our first guest in a while, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so either of you can start, but I kind of want to know, what was the dating culture that you grew up in? Like, was it frowned upon? Was it like
Yeah,
encouraged? How was
totally.
it?
It's a great question. Thanks for asking it. Um, I think I grew up actually homeschooled in a pretty strict house, relatively speaking. Like my
Mm-hmm.
parents' philosophy was dating is to find someone that you want to marry, and so that was like I grew up in a household that was very loving and kind and like spirit filled and all this stuff. But it was like you don't date just to date. So there's a lot of like forced intentionality um,
Mm,
around that. So for me, dating was not really allowed literally until I was like 18. So it was kind of
okay.
like a foreign until I like got out. Basically, it was like a foreign thing for me. So it was very mystical. Girls were scary. Until
Yeah.
I was probably like 14, like I felt like girls were really scary. That's a different story, but the Lord like really encountered me. So um, but yeah, it was like don't do it unless you're trying to find a spouse was that, and then it was very purity culture like mindset, which
Mm,
I'm sure you guys have talked about a lot. So that
mhm.
was kind of my the dating culture like in the teen years. Do you want further than that, or is that solid?
Well, we can hop over to Carrie, and then we probably will ask you, like, how did it switch for you, or what was kind of the evolution, I guess, of your like outlook on dating. But yeah, Carrie, what kind of culture did you grow up in?
Yeah, and I'll just add to Dane's, like, still when we're watching like TV or a movie or something, he's kidding, but if anyone like is kissing, he's like, they're not married, because that's what his mom always did to him.
Sure.
I
So
love
like,
that. I do that to
but
Callie.
Yes, she does.
but yeah, probably very similar. I was raised in like private Christian school, and church and everything like that. So it was like, at least on my parents' side and in my home environment, there wasn't like rules on dating. Like I think I had a boyfriend from the time I was 11 for ever after that. Um,
Wow.
so I was kind of always, which is a whole nother daddy issue of wanting attention from men, but we'll get to that later. Um, but yeah, so I think that like it wasn't that it was wrong, like it was like sure, date whatever, have your boyfriends, but it was definitely very like purity culture. Like the school that I was in, we had purity class, and that was like
Wow.
really damaging for a lot of people.
Wow.
And so it was more that similar vibe that maybe Dane went through too. That was very like, yeah, date, but don't sit next to each other, don't hold hands. So there was kind of like secrecy around it, where it's like, okay, but if you're gonna hold
Mm,
hands, it needs to be under the table, and like, so it was like
Mm.
shame and secrecy kind of driven on the actual like evolution of attraction.
yeah. What was purity class like class that you had all year? How was purity class?
Yeah, I want to say it was like sophomore, it was like sophomore or junior year of high school. And
Okay.
that was what we had Bible class every year. And so that year,
Uh-huh.
that's what replaced Bible class was like we split into boys
Whoa.
and girls and
That is
we had purity
wild.
class. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Private Christian school in Texas.
Come
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Texas.
I want another curriculum. I'm so fascinated, but we'll
Yeah.
talk later about that.
I would
Yeah, yeah,
love
yeah.
to crack open that curriculum. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, obviously you maybe feel a little different now about dating and even when you started to date each other. So what did that look like? Like, when did it kind of start to change for you? When were you kind of like, I don't know if, this is the way that if this is gonna if I'm gonna get married, I might have to, like, do things a little differently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, I think for me personally, dating, um, I felt really called to not date for a lot of years. I felt like the Lord
Mm.
was saying to focus on my relationship with Him and also get through school, have a career. As a man, like I think one of my core roles is to be a provider. And so,
Mm.
not saying that you should not date somebody if you cannot provide as much as you'd like to in the moment. That's definitely not the takeaway. But for me, it was something that like I was really focused on is
Mm.
getting through school and getting to a place where I felt like I could have a wife and a family and not have an issue there. Um, but like I said, that's definitely not the takeaway because everybody is different. And
Mhm.
a big part of it was like I just felt like the Lord and I still had a lot of stuff to work through. So I took
Mm.
basically from like getting out of ministry school in 2011, which I would have been 19, to 27, so 8 years. I intentionally like did not date, and like it was a lot of books, a lot of podcasts, a lot of regular school, a lot of that type of stuff. And there
Mm.
there was like one unintentional relationship in the middle of that place that I like. It was like a friendationship, you know what I'm saying? And I
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh
okay, this
yeah.
is not the Lord. The Lord like he like slapped me, and I was like, okay, this is not the Lord. And so the long story short is that when I turned 27, I felt the Lord kind of release me and say, hey, like I want you. I want you to start dating, start looking, and
Mm.
so that process was opening a new door of listening to podcasts like Christians Who Date and like talking to
Shout
people.
out.
Yes, shout out for real, talking to people who are married and I felt
Mm.
like had great relationships and figuring out,
Yeah.
hey, what does it mean to date well as a man, to be intentional, to be like a safe place, to be like a spiritual covering, like what do these things actually like mean? And so I tried to dig into a lot of those things. So yeah, but I'll pass it over to Kerry.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think for me, like I mentioned, I really was not single for much of my life. And that's like a mixed bag of like the reasoning behind that, I think. Like I genuinely
Mhm.
think for most of it, it was like because I didn't have a great relationship with my dad, like I really desired just like friendship, companionship, and acceptance from a
Mhm.
man more than anything romantic. And so then that was
Mm.
always kind of like an issue because I would be like, maybe me and this guy are like best friends for like years. And then they suddenly, suddenly want to date me. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I thought we were just going to be best friends forever. And so, like in high school and even in college, like that was kind of my rhythm is like I had a lot of like really close guy friendships that once they wanted to like date me and that was expressed, it was like, okay, well, I don't want that. And then I would go the other way and find someone else to buddy up with. And so that was like the cadence probably until I was like, I don't know, out of college, like 22, 23. And then
Mm.
I was like, oh, I need to actually like, date people. And I was in a lot of like long-term relationships, like between 6 months and a couple of years, like over the course of my
Mhm.
20s. Um, and so that's kind of what the evolution looked like for me. But those relationships were still very, on my end, still very like friendship and companionship driven. Um, and the more romantic aspects of it were never really like a big part of it for me.
Hmm.
And that was like a big probably shift that happened way later, like closer to our dating story. So
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so you maybe a little bit some similarities there between your stories, but like a little bit of differences. It's interesting to hear yours, Carrie, because it's like you were almost you had this like you had two things going on at once, like this like purity, intense purity culture, but like also you can kind of date, but then and then you had the like I want to have companionship with men, but like romantic is kind of, I don't know about that. So it's kind of
mhm.
interesting to hear. And then Dane's, yeah, you feel like it feels like yours was more like, all right, I'm not dating now. I feel released to date.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. Which makes sense. Personality wise, Dane's always going to be like a very clear line, and I'm like, I don't know. There's a little bit of interweaving everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, I would love to hear like so I guess Dane picking up where you left off, like you felt released to date. So what did that look like? How did you start kind of acting on what you felt like the Lord was inviting you into?
Yeah. Um, when I turned 27, was a similar time that I moved to Austin, and so
Okay.
I had just felt like the Lord had released me to date, and then shortly after I got my job in Austin, and moved here, and so probably 6 months before that, like I mentioned before, it was a lot of podcasts, it was a lot of like learning, what is my role in dating, and so for me, that transition was somewhat trial and error, but a couple of things that really stuck with me is like not to predate the person in your head. You
Hmm.
know, like for me, like that was a large one of like actually just ask her out to coffee,
Hmm.
do something that is very low stakes. And so my goal in dating was to create an environment of safety, right? So like that was a lot of stuff I learned in this season. Is like my goal in dating is to make sure that whoever is in front of me, I am helping her feel safe and
Hmm.
loved by Jesus and myself. And in order to do that, it requires a lot of intentionality from me and
Hmm.
setting expectations clearly. And so this is something that like I learned as I went along. I was worse at it at the beginning, and then Carrie got maybe a little more refined version of this, but still not perfect. Yeah, still not perfect. But I can remember going to Austin and just being like there's something about dating is like you have to put yourself out there, right? The reality is that
Hmm.
dating is uncomfortable because you're
Yeah.
setting yourself up to be rejected potentially, but you're also
Hmm.
setting yourself up to be loved and valued, right? And so
Hmm.
um, I remember moving to Austin, and it was both about making friends and finding someone. And so I moved to Austin shortly after. Kid you not, guys. I like randomly met some people through like a church life group, and like a year earlier, and this one girl, I followed her on Instagram. I wasn't interested like in her. I just saw she had like lots of friends, and she was like getting prepped for Friendsgiving. And I moved in September, so this is 2 months after living there, and I literally sent her a message. And I was like, hey, I was like, "Can I come to your Friendsgiving?" I was like,
Yeah.
I will make a
Yeah.
delicious like bread. Like there's this cheesy party bread that I make. It's great. Like I literally like invited myself to this Friendsgiving, because the reality of like dating is that it takes confidence as well, and knowing that
Yeah.
you are a person of value,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
that is so important. So if you don't know that you're a person of value, that people want to be around you because you bring something, then I would say, hey, like it's okay that you're there right now, no problem, but dig into that with the Lord. Like if you have thoughts that you're not worth loving or valuable enough, then I would just encourage anybody to dig into that with Jesus, because it really is the foundation for like our confidence, like in the Lord. And so I remember just literally telling myself, Dane, you are a person worth knowing. Like, and you're a person that's going to fight for connection. And so that's how I approached like friendships and dating. And so I had a number of relationships that like didn't work out. I think there was like three major, I shouldn't say major, but three more serious relationships. Pretty quickly, I either felt like it wasn't right, or they did. I think the longest one was 6 months before Carrie. That's the longest
Okay.
relationship I was in before Carrie. Like one of us felt like it wasn't right, for whatever reason. So we can dig into that more, but I don't want to like take all your time, babe.
That's good stuff.
Thanks, appreciate it. So that basically like leads me, and I can go into like flops and stuff too. Like you guys can ask whatever questions you want, but that leads me more to like when Carrie and I met. So I'll pass it off to Carrie with like some of her dating stuff.
Well, I just want to say this is how Dane talks, like in a normal evening hanging out with me. I'm always like, give this guy a microphone. This is just like how he
dropping all
talks
this
to me.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really like the cheesy bread story, because you also didn't show up empty-handed, you know? You're like, "Hey, I'm not just here to take, I'm here to contribute, not just with a
Yep.
personality, but with a physical loaf of bread." Yeah.
Also, I love that you call it the cheesy bread story, Dre. I'd be like, oh, the Friendsgiving story. You're like, cheesy bread.
Yeah, and I would say like the dating thing too, like how Dane was saying, like dating is an important skill to develop for like literally any human, because of how it translates over to building friendships and stuff too. Like some of his
Yeah.
closest friends still now were men that he met at church and walked up to them and was like, "Hey, I want to get to know you. Here's what my expectation is. Like, I'd love to meet up with you this many times per month." Or like he was just very clear and defined at like pursuing like friendship with men that he felt were like-minded and intentional and on track with the Lord. And so, yeah, it translates over.
Thanks,
The
babe.
skill does. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so good.
But yeah, I guess my evolution was very, very different. And a lot messier than that. Dane is very decisive and I don't know, other great qualities, but my dating was a lot messier. Like I mentioned, like I kind of was in a lot of longer term relationships, and I think that was just a combination of factors. Like I think genuinely, like at the end of the day, when I look back now, I think that I didn't have like the faith to be single. And so it was like, even if I knew something wasn't best for me or right for me, I was willing to like wait it out for longer than its time because I didn't have another thing lined up yet. And it felt like I could justify it in my mind. Like I could be like, oh, but they have these qualities that represent the Lord. And so maybe I'll just keep trying to make it work. But you know, in retrospect, it's like I was always trying to like justify their relationship. I wasn't necessarily just like enjoying it and seeing the Lord actively like move in it. And so, and in the ones where maybe I was, the other person wasn't. And so, you know, it has to be reciprocated too.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of my relationships were just like a lot messier in that way. And then, yeah, I mean, I guess even when we started dating, that's a whole nother, I forgot about that. Anyway, but that was like, I had just gotten out of a relationship, like how far? 2 months? Something before that?
Are we moving to the next question?
We can float right into it.
What's
That's
our
totally
story?
fine.
And we can always backtrack as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're not opposed to backtracking. So
We don't need
yeah.
just linear. I can always go background check.
Yeah.
There you go.
So let's talk about it, Carrie.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like perfect, but never safe. We can still backtrack. Yeah, so we started dating basically like Dane saw me on our friend Tabitha's social media, and was like,
who's also in our life group.
who's also
Shout
in the
out.
life
Shout
group.
out our life group.
Yeah.
So Tab was like basically my friend group in Houston. Tab was like a key part of that. And I think we only overlapped for like a month before she moved to Austin. So like I kind of met her in passing, but enough to where we're following each other on social media and stuff. And then she moved to Austin when she got married. That's how she met Dane at Bethel and everything. So anyway, so then Dane was like, "Hey, I'm really interested in Kerry. Like, tell me about her. Like, is she single? What's she like? You know, whatever."
I said she's beautiful.
Yeah. I don't know. You can
Yes.
probably speak to that part more.
No, the reality with dating that I've found is that when you are, as a man, asking a girl out, like I keep saying, you have to bring in safety. And so I had a lot of girls just say no to me. I personally believe because they didn't know that I was a safe man. So I found a lot of luck in actually asking my friends, hey, telling people that I know me and trust me and that like I love them and I trust their judgment. I'd say, hey, like if you know anybody, I would love to be set up. And the reality though is that I actually had to train people how to set me up because people do it wrong often,
Tell us
naturally.
about
Yeah,
this.
how do they do it?
In my opinion, when you're setting someone up, you should start with one person and gauge if there's interest first, right? Like if you go to both people at the same time and ask them both, more than likely one of them is going to say, I'm not interested for whatever reason. And that's a valid reason. It's okay if someone's not interested. But if you do that, what you're saying to maybe your other friend that wasn't getting like accepted or however you want to word that, you're setting them up for disappointment. So I always requested, hey, like I'd love to be set up. Just like check in with me and see if I'm interested, or like if I'd potentially be interested. Like tell me about the person before you tell them, or vice versa. Like tell them first if they're interested. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. So that's a total side tangent, but so I did that with Kerry as well, and I was like, okay, who of my friends like knows people? And I saw that Kerry's friend group in Houston, they really seemed to have a great group of people, and so Kerry caught my eye just on social media, like she said, and so I inquired about her. And Tabitha was able to speak to me as a person and develop the safety before, like Carrie didn't have to go through all the safety protocols that you girls have to go through because Carrie was like, oh, I trust what Tabitha says. So
yeah, no, that's true. And that's like the first thing Tab said. Like she reached out to me and was like, hey, like my friend Dane tonight, like you know, let me know that he would be interested in you. You know, here's his profile, here's some pictures, here's what I would have to say about him. Like he's an amazing communicator, he's a really safe person. He's more likely to over communicate than under communicate. That's what she said about the communication piece. And I was like, I love that. That's a great quality. That you're honest, that you love the Lord. Anyway, so she just highlighted some key things that for me are like my top values. She just like listed them off, and I was like, what? That's amazing. Okay, I'm totally down, you know? So yeah, and then of course I thought he's cute too. He's so cute.
I'm dead. I love it.
But yeah, I knew he lived in Austin, and I don't know, that piece also, like I am from Austin, so my parents live here. So there's still like an open door for that for me too. That wasn't like an immediate disqualifier. So anyway, yeah. And then I would say that like dating wise, like I think Dane did a really good job of the things that he's been saying, which is like making it really low stakes, like from the very beginning. Like I think we had a FaceTime call first.
Yeah,
maybe we messaged a little bit and then we had a FaceTime call.
Always try to do a FaceTime first. Yeah. Like guys out there so they can see your face, you know. Girls want to see your face. You're not catfishing them, and vice versa, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just see that you're like an authentic, genuine, straightforward person. Like you can only read so much over like text messages and stuff, and so we FaceTimed like pretty quickly after we got connected, and then I want to say like a week or two after that, we were going to meet up for a date. But I just think like Dane was really good about being like, you know, hey, I'd really love to take you on like a low pressure, get to know you date. Like, And then he provided 3 options. He's like, we can do this activity, paddleboarding, and bring a picnic. We can do, a
Just
dinner.
coffee. Yeah,
Oh yeah, a coffee.
dinner and
Yeah.
then coffee. Yeah,
Um,
those 3.
and
Yeah.
so, yeah. And I was like, let's go paddleboarding.
She's the adventure one. But the reason to do that is because you want to give the woman options, right? Because you don't know where she's at. And so it's like, do you want a public place like coffee and we meet there together? Do you want like an adventure thing that like, maybe is going to take a little bit more time? Or do you want like a formal thing like, let's go get dinner together and maybe it's more stereotypical first date? So if you can provide options, then I think that always like worked out well.
Yeah,
Love
but on the part
options.
about the friend vouching for you thing, like, I think that's like really powerful because I didn't have to, there's so many things I didn't have to think about. I was like, if Tabitha trusts this person, then like, I don't have to sit here and analyze his character. I just need to see if I'm attracted to him and if I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were your initial like thoughts or impressions after the FaceTime?
I think I was really impressed at like how direct and confident, which I mean comes from a place like Dane was saying, like if you believe you're someone that's worthy of being loved and that is worth getting to know, then you carry confidence and it's very different than pride. Like it just comes off very differently. It's like he's not full of himself, but he knows who he is, he knows he's valuable, and he knows what he has to offer me is valuable. And so I think he came off that way from the very beginning, just very like clear about like, this is what, this is what I'd like to do. This is what I can offer you. This is, what, when I'm free, this is, it was just all very like clear from the beginning. So I think I felt that way over FaceTime too. And I will say like, if someone's very like direct and all those things, like, that can also, for some people, make them like very intense as a person. So I think the FaceTime for me was also like, oh, he's very down to earth, he's chill, like we can chat and it's like comfortable and like he asks good questions. He's not just like jumping on a FaceTime and staring at me. He like leads the conversation and like asks good questions and all that stuff. So
that's great, babe. Yeah, for me on our first FaceTime, to be honest, I was like I don't remember what I felt. So can I skip this to our first date?
Totally. Go
Great.
ahead.
Actually, that's great that you shared that. That's awesome. That you're like, I don't remember. That's like totally great.
Well, because it's so low pressure for me. Like that first FaceTime is like, I'm just trying to see if this person's normal. Like the bar is very low. Like the bar
so good.
is not high at all.
And I'm like, wow, he's so intentional.
Yeah, I'm like asking questions. That's it.
Dane's like normal. Check.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's another great conversation side tangent that if we want to get into, we can. Is the art of asking good questions.
For real.
Is like so important. But I on our first date, I think some of the things that impressed me about Kerry was like she also was intentional, and you could see that in things that I valued. So I really value like hard work and dedication and the like being honest and holy and set apart and all of these types of things. And I could see, oh, like this girl, she takes care of her body. You know what I mean? Like this is something like she's working on herself. Just like, because I have a huge value for that. She has a huge value for fun. Like I can tell, like she's just down. On our first date, I literally opened the door. It was 2 days after my birthday, and she's holding a cupcake. And the first thing she says to me is, "Happy birthday!" Like that was literally the first thing she said to me. So
I love it.
That kind of like set her apart in my mind of like, oh, this girl is intentional and she likes to celebrate people. So
It's so true.
Big celebrator.
So those definitely that definitely made a positive impression on me. Those things when we had our first date.
Yeah, and then I mean the day after our first date, or the day of or after, anyway, however it happened, he was like, I'd love to go on another date with you, but like I was only in town for the
2 days.
weekend, or 3 days.
So
So he's like, I know it's soon, but you want to go on another date like tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had made plans to basically meet with Tab and Shane to like debrief with them about how the date went. So I was like, well, I'm already hanging out with Tab and Shane, but maybe we can do a double date. And so our second date, the second day of seeing each other, was a double date with Tab and Shane.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
hilarious.
that.
They were also very intense, intentional people. And so
Yes.
I feel like we barely got there and they were like,
They have.
Dane, what's your favorite
What's your favorite physical characteristic of Carrie? Literally, I've known her for 24 hours.
Oh my
Oh
God.
I was
my
like,
Who
God.
asked that? Did
I
Shane or
died.
Tabitha?
Tabitha.
She
Yes.
would.
She cracked me up. Honestly, they did ask some good questions, but it's just so important. Like as a man, like if you're not interested in someone after a first date, tell them. Tell them. Be honest. Like be honest with yourself. Be honest with the other person. I normally have like if it's a hard no, then I'm like, okay, like I'll tell them right away. If it's a maybe, I have a 3-date rule, or I had a 3-date rule, which turned into a 2-date rule
I
sometimes.
still have
Sometimes,
a 3-date rule.
Yeah. We
sometimes,
haven't had date night in a year.
that's funny. But the reality is like you want to give the person a chance.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to discard them, which is something that I think Carrie can speak to really well. But you don't want to discard them off of something that maybe you like you shouldn't. Like you know what I mean? But if it's an actual red flag, just be clear. So the point of it is saying is
Yeah.
like in this context, I was interested in going on another date with Carrie, and I knew that she was leaving like 36 hours from when our first date ended. And I was like, okay, I'm interested in her. So let me just tell her. And that's what I said. I was like, I would like to go on another date with you. So the point being here, like men, and I think ladies, you can do this too, but especially men as leaders, it's like your job is to be intentional. And that's a way you can do it. You bring clarity. So yes, we went on a date with Tab and Shane.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess I was also gonna say like the being clear thing. Like obviously it is on both sides, but I think like as a woman, like literally my brain is going back into like theology and like the Garden of Eden and everything. But basically like we are more prone to deception. Like that's what we're more prone to. And that, if you break it down, it's like women are more prone to get caught in their head about something and to overthink something and to and then like that's where like Satan can get in and like weave in lies and like he doesn't even like you or whatever. And so I do think like one of the most attractive things and like something really valuable in dating for men is like to be clear and be direct. Like it is like kind of on them to be like really clear about like what are they leading you towards. And I thought Dane did a really good job compared to a lot of other relationships that I've been in where maybe it was very emotionally driven up front. Like Dane was very good at maybe what he would call is like pacing the relationship, but it was like he's never over promising. He's not like on the first date being like, oh yeah, well I can see our wedding looking like he's not like jumping ahead. He's literally like very much staying present in the fact that we're on a first date, and he kept the tone and the pace of the conversation emotionally and everything matched that. And then it was like, hey, I would like to take you on a second date. It wasn't like, wow, let's keep doing this, this is great. Like it wasn't unclear. It was like, I would like to take you on a second date. Like it was just like the whole process was very clearly defined. So I never really had to guess like, how does he feel, where are we at? It's like, I don't know if he wants to marry me, but I know he wants to take me on a second date, and that's all I care about.
Yeah. That's all you need to know at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Dane, could I ask, what do you think gets in the way of men like being clear like that or setting expectations? Do you think it's just like they just don't know how, or what have you seen hold guys back, I guess?
It's a great question, Andrea, because I think it's a mixture of things for each guy. What I've commonly seen when I talk to guys about similar things is it's a mixture of they don't know, for sure, but I'd say the number one is probably fear,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the confidence that I was talking about that comes from the Lord, not being confident in who they are. I will say I have so much empathy for both men and women because it's hard on both sides, right? Like, I was having a conversation with, or maybe both of us were, with one of Carrie's mutual friends. Her name's Morgan. Um, and like she basically like put herself out there and like a guy rejected her and she was like heartbroken. You know what I mean? And I was just like, it just feels like another Tuesday in a guy's world. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, because that's like when as the man, your job is to initiate, and so you're putting yourself in the position to be rejected much more often.
Yeah.
Like if you're,
Oh, you should be.
you should be.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you should be, right? And so when it comes to other guys, though, and the core of your question, I think it really does come down to fear. It's fear of rejection. I really do think that's like one of the major things. And I just believe, like, as men, the goal is if you're feeling fear, like, fear should be an indicator that you have a level up opportunity. Like you as a man or a woman, I think this applies to everybody, but you have an opportunity to level up. If you're feeling fear, it's either, and like neither of us are perfect in this. There's a lot of areas. I'm more prone to fear, believe it or not. I know it's not sounding like that in this podcast, but I'm more prone to fear, and so it's something that I have to be very intentional with. And I'm like, oh, I'm feeling fear here. Like, what is the level of opportunity for me, or what is this fear trying to protect me from? So that gives me an indicator of where I can kind of search my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I always like to, I'm like, I wonder why this happens, you know, and it's good to hear your side because obviously I have my own theories about it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
100%, 100%. I did want to add, I did want to add one thing in the midst of this, like when Carrie and I first started dating. You want to talk about like we started talking about her previous
Oh,
relationship,
yeah.
and I
Oh,
feel like it's a
yes.
really good
Yeah.
like stretching like story of
Yeah.
like the beginning of our relationship for both of us for
Okay.
Yeah.
different reasons.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Do you want me to take a little?
yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. I've been talking too much.
Yeah. So I mean, I had just gotten out of a relationship where it was one of those relationships where like it had ended, but it was like months later, and like we're still talking and hanging out and like being friends, but not,
Totally.
yeah. So it was one of those things that was happening, and yeah, I guess what ended up happening timeline wise, like we went on our first date at the end of July, and then at the very beginning of September, I was going hiking in Switzerland by myself, and Dane was going hiking in Alaska, like pretty much the same.
Within a couple day overlap period, we were gone
Hmm.
and hiking. It was cool.
So I only like timeline it that way because there was like a month from our first date to leaving on that trip, and that month for me was like a lot of inner turmoil. Um, because I had this like lingering past relationship that um, was very, very, I don't know, materialistic maybe. Like this person just like really catered to my selfish nature. Um, and I didn't realize that was the case until later, but I was like, wow, like a big part of, you know, being with this person is the fact that like he will spend any amount of money on me at any given time, like just wines and dines me and will take me on trips. And I'm looking at, you know, this giant fork in the road where there's this, you know, past relationship, but also this guy who's like willing to do anything to get me back at any given moment, who, you know, is much more driven by like material things and has like put so much effort into like buying me. And then I'm like, oh, it's kind of concerning to me that like it's kind of worked. So that like part of me wants to sign up for that, to sign up for like a long-term lifestyle where I can have whatever I want. But then spiritually, I'm like, this isn't making me closer to the Lord. Like this is literally just feeding, you know, an egocentric life, basically. So I'm looking at that side of the equation, and then I'm, obviously looking at Dane in the very limited, just like getting to know him, and I'm like, I know the type of person that he is, and I know that it's going to require that I actually like die to my selfish nature. Like even in just that one example, like financially, Dane is like, he's not going to like overspend, wine and dine, because he believes like he has worth and value and who he is as a person. He doesn't need to buy someone. And the other, the other relationship couldn't say that. And so I think like on that trip in particular, was just like such a stark contrast as I'm like in this inner turmoil, like feeling like, okay, what I do in the next couple weeks is going to determine the outcome of my life, because I know the Lord's like, bringing this amazing man of God into my life, but I know that that's going to require a less selfish life of me. And then I have this other person who's willing to like buy me houses in Spain and Italy and like do whatever, like, like wine and dine my whole life or whatever. And so, I was kind of faced with my own like humanity in that decision. And then I think a big, like contrast was seeing the way that these two people like talked about each other was so opposite. So, this like past relationship guy, I told him like, yeah, I've gone on a couple of dates with someone, because, at this point we're just friends. I'm going on a couple of dates with someone, like I'm really interested in him, like his, his mom's a missionary, he's really interested in ministry long term. And this guy was just like, he was like, you don't want to be with someone like that, like they're not going to spend any money on you, whatever. Okay, you don't want to be with someone like that. Kind of like speaking to the things that I was just mentioning, but kind of throwing Dane under the bus also as a person, like and then when we were FaceTiming when I was in Switzerland, Dane and I were, and I was like, man, honestly, like I just have a lot of inner turmoil, and I hadn't told him about it really until that point. Like this was kind of the conversation where I was like, I'm really wrestling with this, and this guy, even while I'm overseas or whatever, it's like he's just like blowing up my messages all the time, like trying to get me back basically. And anyway, so I mean, I'll let you jump in here in a second, but I think basically the contrast was huge for me, because when I shared that with Dane, I expected him, like it was really vulnerable, and I felt like, wow, this is like hearing myself say it out loud, this is really selfish or shallow, or it feels like, why am I even struggling with this idea when I have like everything I've ever wanted in a man of God like literally right in front of me. It felt like I was like ashamed that I was even like wrestling with it, and so it felt vulnerable to share it with him. And so when I shared, I really expected him to be like, yeah, that's lame and I'm worth more than that, so bye. And he wasn't. Like he was so like loving and kind, like he was literally like, yeah, like this is a decision that you have to make for yourself, and I support you like taking the time to like sift through it. And I don't know what all you said, but like he was just very honoring of this like not so great other guy. Like he was very honoring of him and very like honoring of my process. And in that moment I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. Like just that contrast of how y'all are talking about each other makes my decision really easy. So,
no, it's such an interesting story, because like internally I have a choice, right? Like normally, and I say normally, and this is I think where the Lord gets involved in our dating world and our dating relationship. I would say normally on the outside, if that happened with any of my previous relationships, I probably would have been like, hey, it seems like you're really not sure, so I'm just gonna peace out. Like literally, like I think in every other past relationship, I wouldn't have had it. Like because the Lord wasn't like in those. And so I had to keep praying, because it was difficult. It was actually it was hard, because I was like, God, like I feel like I'm enjoying getting to know this person. Like I don't believe that there's one person that we can like find that the one or whatever. Like there will be someone else, but I'm enjoying the process with this person, and I'm feeling your peace on the next step. I'm like, just say yes to the next step. And so I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to say yes to the next step. And in the process of that, like Kerry tells me this, and she told you my response, and I'm just praying, and I'm like, God, like this doesn't make sense. And I literally just felt him say like, hey, like my grace is sufficient for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like my grace is sufficient for both of you, for you, like how this affects you and what she's going through, like right now. And like this
Yeah.
isn't like who Kerry, like this isn't who Kerry is. Like she's confused.
She's wrestling.
Wrestling, yeah, she's wrestling, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much empathy for that. But the point being is like, um, and it's why I wanted to bring this part of the story up, is because relationships for us, dating for us was like that one right there in any other previous relationship would have been a deal breaker for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the point where I'd
Wow.
have been like, yeah, like if you're like, it's been a month, you're going back and forth with this guy. I'm like, just like she said, she worded it perfectly. I'm worth more than that. That's probably what I would have said. Like, no worries.
Yeah.
Like you can figure you out. But I had this thing in me that it is called Jesus, right? And Jesus knew. Jesus knew.
Yeah.
So that was the main point, is like, listen to Jesus, get wise counsel. Like, would not recommend that. To be honest, like wouldn't recommend that actually, unless you really have a relationship with the Lord and you're pacing the relationship and like you're doing all the other checks and stuff. But once it was a green light for Kerry, it was like, it was a green light.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
majorly.
true.
So maybe we should let them. How are we doing?
This is
We
great.
just
Keep
rambled.
going.
Guys are doing
Okay.
great.
I'm like in.
Say,
I'm bought into the story.
I was gonna say it's interesting though, because I feel like I've had conversations with people before where I'm like, it's not, you're obviously not going to find someone perfect, but find someone that you have a grace for. Like you're trying to find someone, you know, like,
that's right.
So, thanks for validating that, because I'm still single,
says it
but
all
you
the
guys are
time.
married. So when you say it, it carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, honestly, I'm glad you said that, because like I was going to bring up another example, like from dating, because I feel like in the dating like world, we were just talking about this earlier today, but I was like, if you as a single person created like a spreadsheet of all of your like preferences and deal breakers, like, and then if people had to filter through that before they even got to you, like you probably would never actually find anyone.
Yeah.
And so you're right, like it's about like having a grace for someone. And um I want to like, so basically like was it on our third date when you came to Houston?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was like our third date. He came to Houston, and we had talked like really early on about like some of my past relationships, like sexual sin and porn and masturbation backgrounds had been like a really big painful part of the relationship. And so for me, that was like this hard line deal breaker. Like if a guy has ever struggled with this, I don't want anything to do with it. It's a hard line. So in one way or another, like this got brought up in like one of our first dates.
Mm-hmm.
And so on our third date, he like had come to Houston, and we went out to dinner, and he like shared with me just like really boldly and vulnerably like his past in these areas. And like I'm only bringing this up because similar to the choice he had to make with me like a month before that, or whatever that timing was right after that, that was like a moment where I was like, oh, maybe it's not a deal breaker. Like I was like, why am I not triggered the way I thought I would be? Because normally if that would come up, I would be like, okay, well, I'm out, I'm worth more than that, whatever, like similar response. But in that moment I was like, oh, I feel different. Like I felt the Lord's grace over that situation. I felt the Lord's like grace over him. And I think in that moment too, I was like kind of realizing it was not so much about like the past or the sin itself or whatever. It's about, like you mentioned earlier, the fear. What am I trying to protect myself from by like drawing these hard lines and boundaries? So that's worth like reflecting on with the Lord. But then it was also about like, how does someone, not does someone sin or not, but like how do they handle their sin? And in that moment too, it was just such a stark contrast of like, I would much rather, be like, you're never going to be with someone who's perfect and who has never sinned and will never sin. But looking at someone who's willing to like face the risk of rejection so early on in such a high potential dating relationship, I'm like, he's just willing to put it all out there for the sake of like honoring what I have said is really important to me. And that like braveness and the way he is like handling it is like really attractive, really impressive, and it like superseded the fear of the pattern or the sin itself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the way he
Yeah.
was handling it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
the way he was handling it built a lot of trust with you, and
Mm-hmm.
which is what you want, because like I said, or like we've talked about, you're not going to find somebody perfect, but if you can find someone where you respect the way that they handle, you know, their stuff or have worked through it or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
then that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my fear was more like that things would be hidden from me. So like that pattern, I mean, in that moment for sure, but then that pattern continued over
Yeah.
the course of dating and marriage where it's like, okay, like Dane's not going to be perfect, but if he like, you know, missteps or whatever in any area, he's going to like own it. He's going to like, he's going to chase after health and healing. Um,
Yeah.
he's going to face it head on and he's going to bring it directly to me. And that's what like matters. Like that's where intimacy comes from, is like not having
Yeah.
the fear that holds you back in shame, but like being willing to like expose yourself to each other constantly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's good, babe.
So good.
It's
That
good.
is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you guys have any, like, as you look back on your dating journey, was there anything else that maybe came up that you had to work through that you feel like is significant enough, I guess, to share?
We had to work through a lot of things.
I love it. We love it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of like triggers for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was just differences. Like, even though like morally and like in a lot of ways we were very, very aligned, like our core values are like super aligned,
Mm-hmm.
but how
Mhm.
we get there is different.
Very different.
And that's still true today. Like the biggest example is like growth. Like probably both of our highest value is like growth. And that's like a really attractive quality and a really important quality, honestly, for everyone to have, because you don't want to be stagnant. You always want to be growing with the Lord and personally. And so anyway, I think like the growth mindset is really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, how we get there is different. So we had to talk about things. I don't know, what were some of the examples we said? Finances was like a huge difference that I kind of alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
Dane's a lot more of a saver, and I'm a lot more of a spender.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like my love language is gifts and stuff, and so, but he was very like, I don't want to feel like I have to buy you, and so, like, so we
Yeah.
were constantly trying to figure that out, even in dating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially contrasted with the guy who was
Yeah,
definitely trying to buy you.
yep,
Dude,
totally.
it did not set me up for success. Let me tell you, it was rough. It was rough. Yeah. But
Dane,
the
do you
Lord is
feel like
good.
you I was gonna say, Dane, do you feel like you actually resisted that a little, where you maybe like swung to the other side? You're like, I'm not gonna buy you anything. No, I'm joking.
It's a
Not
valid
even a coffee.
question. No, I don't think I swung. I don't think I swung, but I did stick to who I felt like I was.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I stuck to who I
That's so
am,
good. That's
because
so
like
good.
the reality is, like, if you are dating someone and you are not you are not being yourself, you're doing a disservice to both yourself and the other person.
Yep.
So even though that this whole financial piece was a and still is, it's still something that we have to talk about, and we're still learning how to work through. We've gotten a lot better, but even though it's something that you're different, like, you don't want to come to the table not being yourself, because you're only leading the relationship into disaster, because eventually you're either going to snap because you're not being yourself and you feel unknown and unheard, or you're going to just call it quits, throw the towel, and leave because of the same reason, like you don't feel known, seen, or heard. Or you're going to become incredibly codependent, right? Like you are putting
Yeah.
your entire identity into this person. So like differences don't have to be like like a deal breaker, but you do need to stay true to like who you are and what God has placed inside of you while still being open. I think Carrie and Carrie taught me a lot about this, while still being open to like, what is this other person's perspective? Where are they coming from? And I can let Carrie speak about this a little bit more, but I, coming into the relationship, did not drink. I felt like the Lord told me not to drink from age 18 to almost right before we started dating. I even had a girl. I had a girl break up with me. We call her alcohol girl.
We call it alcohol.
I love it.
Shout
Best
out to
nickname.
Alcohol Girl.
Alcohol girl, someone will find you.
I don't
He doesn't want me to know the names of his exes, so they're all labeled. It's alcohol girl. There's only 3 of them, so
yeah.
yeah.
I
Hilarious.
am obsessed. Okay, anyways.
So but the reality is, like, I had to do some soul searching in myself and be like, okay, like the Bible doesn't say that this is a sin, but it definitely has been something that the Lord has placed as something that I felt like I'm supposed to do. Like, God, is this actually lifting? And what are the things that are just me now that aren't you anymore inside of this? And those were some long, deep conversations, because for me, to be honest, that was another one that could have been a deal breaker for our relationship. And so Carrie and I had to have some really serious conversations. And she basically just summed it up. And she was like, Dane, I'm not changing in this area. So, like, I love wine. This is what she said. She says, I love wine. It brings me so much joy. I love learning about it. I love the different tasting notes. I like, it's so enjoyable for me.
To be clear, Carrie's not like a partier. She's more of like a wine connoisseur.
Yes. We're talking sommelier. We're not talking Miami on the beach. So she has an enjoyment for this thing that I feel like, to me, is a moral thing, right? And so I had to do a lot of soul searching and be like, okay, biblically, it's actually not a moral thing. It was a personal moral thing for me. But God, are you calling me out of that? And that was something that the Lord had to do a lot of work on me in. And so when she basically gave me that sentence, hey Dane, like, this is me, like, if you don't like it, like, this is who I am. And I had to choose, okay, maybe it's still not my favorite thing, right? I remember thinking this, but Carrie's worth it, right? And so when you're talking about dating a relationship, no one's perfect. You're not going to be fully aligned on every single thing. It's, do you have the capacity to say yes to this person when maybe you don't have the same view or you feel differently?
And to like stretch to understand a different view. So like, if you know the other person is like aligned spiritually, like, as in like, I trust that like Dane hears the voice of God, has an active relationship with God, like his opinion on certain things or stance on certain things might be different than mine. But I think like that's also something to learn from the dating process, is like, that's not always a threat. Like, it doesn't have to be treated like a threat to the relationship or putting the relationship on the line every time. Like, because really, like, the cadence and the dynamic that you're building within your dating relationship with that person, if you do end up marrying them, you're carrying all of that over. So your way of handling conflict and your way of, if you put the relationship on the line constantly in dating, that happens to a lot of people in their marriage all the time. They're just putting it on the line with any tiny thing that comes up.
So good, Carrie.
So it's important to like set that tone as if that person does have the potential to be your spouse from a really early starting line, and be like, okay, I want to handle them with respect. I want to handle conflicts in a way that I'm curious towards them, because I do trust. I mean, you should, even going on a second date with someone, trust that they are, walking closely with the Lord. If you feel like that's true, then like, give them the benefit of the doubt and trust that they are hearing from him just like you are. So I think there was a lot of things really early on that probably on both sides, maybe we felt like were deal breakers, like from the outside looking in would have thought were deal breakers. But then when it came right down to it, it was an opportunity to like explore a new perspective, to challenge ourselves with the Lord, because there was grace. towards each other. So in those areas that we thought would be a hard line, I think we both experienced a lot of those, that it was like, actually, maybe I need to go on more of a journey with the Lord and understand like why I have such a strong opinion in this area that's not directly black and white biblically, which is a lot of areas.
Yeah.
There's a ton of areas that like are not clearly defined, and it is up to our own
Yep.
discernment. And so that can be theologically, or it can be, stuff like alcohol, finances. I don't know. There's other examples, but
Yeah.
being open to like growing with the other person instead of feeling threatened by them. I think that's like a key sign of like a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage, is like if you can get to a place, which we are still working on in some areas, but when you can get to a place where the other person brings a perspective that's contrary to yours, and you're able to like, instead of being like, well, I don't agree with that, like offended and defensive, being like, oh, that's really interesting, like tell me about your process, how have you gotten there, and like actually open your mind. That's like part of God's design behind marriage in the first place, is that we're finding each other, and that's how you're going to grow. So
that's way easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And what we're not saying is, we're not saying don't have non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely there are non-negotiables. Truth is true.
Right.
Like the Bible is true. God's word is definite. And so you should, there were actual non-negotiables, but there are things that, like, there's a difference between, and I had a mentor tell me this, there's a difference between you between your preferences and what God is saying, God's word.
That's good.
And like his voice, right? And so when we're looking at disagreements and we're looking at differences, I'm like, okay, let's first set the stage. Is this a biblical issue? Like, does God speak to this thing? Because if he does, then we both need to align to that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but is it just a preference? And it's like, okay, well, if it's a preference, that means there's opportunity for compromise. And that's something that we are learning right now in our marriage, is like how to do that well and how to walk through that. But it's important to distinguish those, because there is truth, like, and like, we're definitely not saying just let things go and just be happy with whoever,
Yeah. It is true too that people have different convictions, like, and I think it really is from the Lord. Like I'm like, I believe that like your conviction about alcohol is God given. Does it mean that it's like a rule for everybody? Like, like it's like there's probably things that Kerry is has a high conviction for, that it's just the way that the Lord wired her, and it's not necessarily like everybody needs to like come up to this standard or whatever. So yeah. Were you gonna say more, Kerry?
Oh yeah. I was just gonna say, like, I think that we in some ways came from opposite ends of that spectrum. Like, I think Dane had a lot of expectations in some ways, and I was almost too open-minded, hence the last relationship. But I was like, everyone has value, everyone's created in the image of God, like kind of a little too open in that specific area. Like, I think it's good to be open-minded, but when it's like who you're dating, I think there should be some basic things that you align on as a baseline, but then kind of looking at what are actual non-negotiables and what are preferences. Like, that's really important, because I think that is also dynamic, and it should be in some ways, like the preferences part, because there's certain things that I thought were non-negotiables that evolved over the course of our dating relationship. And I saw myself changing, like in a good way, where I'm like, okay, maybe prime example is the Bethel thing. We didn't say this, but my whole friend group in Houston that Dane got connected to me through, like, everyone is involved within Bethel. Like, I was the one person who was not. I was raised Baptist, like, very, very different. And so it was just funny. Like, we had to laugh at that really early on. We're like, of course, like, Dane looked at here's all the options of women. They all are super involved with Bethel except for Kerry, and like I'm the one that gets highlighted to him. And so
I
that
love
from like
that.
really early was just like comical, like for both of us, because it was like, okay, well, the Lord's wanting to challenge something in me that I haven't addressed. The Lord's
Mhm.
like challenging Dane in these different areas. And so just seeing the Lord in it all is important too, like just zooming out and being like, okay,
Mhm.
what is he doing here to change and shape and form like me?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, we won carryover. She loves.
Now
I'm just kidding.
Oh
I
my
got
Better
god.
a
now.
small group, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I think I have one more question, but Lauren and Kalli, if you have anything you wanted to ask, I wanted to give you space too.
Yeah.
But
I have
okay.
a question, Dre Dog.
Yeah, and I'll
Okay,
have one
bring
too.
it.
Lauren, you go first.
Okay. We love the love. This is so good. So from dating, when did you all decide? Because, you know, Dane, you were sharing, okay, I kind of just knew like this is the next step. We're going to go on a second date, you know, third date, whatever. When did you all start having those conversations about marriage and about getting engaged? You know, because in charismatic or spiritual culture, some people are like, I just know you're the one immediately, and they want to talk about it, that emotion driven,
Yeah.
and instead of pacing. And so I'd love to hear your guys' process of talking about that next step of commitment.
We
Yeah.
love this question
Yeah.
because we have different timelines. Carrie and I both had different timelines
Of like when we were ready.
to that point.
Yeah.
And so what
Yeah.
you're setting yourself up for is pain on one person's side, most likely. Like I think a lot of times we in a dating environment can think, oh, like it's going to be exactly the same every time. And the reality is if you're taking it one step at a time and you're being honest with yourself and only moving forward one step at a time, it really will be a different pace to some degree with where people's hearts are at and those kinds of lines. So Carrie, like 3 months into dating,
Yeah.
looks over at me and says, I'm all in. She's like, I'm ready to marry you right now. You know what I mean? I'm like,
That's Lauren.
obsessed. Let's go, Carrie.
I was like,
I remember saying like something to the effect of like, why, like I don't know how to keep just like dating you. Like, don't you date to like find out who you want to marry? So like, if I already know, how do we just keep dating?
yeah. So she says that, you know, she's like, I'm ready, and I was like, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, I had to tell her it was, and it still is one very painful point in our
This
dating
was on our way
story.
to a friend's birthday party, and I was like,
Oh.
Yeah.
Dang.
Andrew, you might have been there actually, but
yeah.
It was Andrea's birthday party.
no, it wasn't her birthday. It's the other thing.
That'd be so funny.
Someone in our home group, but no, we love this question because I think we just need to debunk like it's okay to have different paces
Yeah.
to some degree, right?
So
As the
good.
man, I'm trying to lead the pace that I feel like is comfortable for both of us. I'm trying to be cognizant of that, but I never want to go like I never want to I never want to lead our relationship past the point
Where
of
it's
the
actually at.
commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, of the commitment that we've given to each other. And so I was trying to be really
Yeah.
aware of that in my own heart. So when she said that, I wasn't there yet.
Mhm.
I was like, there's still
Yeah.
conversations that I want to have with you, and that like I'm not 100%. Like I can't say I'm 100% because she was like, I'm all in. Let's do this. You know. So that was painful, but I guess I shouldn't speak for you.
No, yeah, because I think for me, like the hard things, the hard topics, the hard conversations, like I'm very like straightforward with bringing them up super early. And so once those had been had and I like understood his character in some different areas, I was like, okay, well, I like obviously he's not perfect or whatever, but it was more like I know that we can talk or work through anything. I have so much confidence in his like how much he cares about people, the way he communicates, the way he pursues growth in every area. He's super open to
Yeah.
feedback. He's super open to learning how he can do something better. Like he's an avid like learner. So there's a lot of things for me that were like check boxes, if you will, that I didn't realize were such high values of mine that had never been, checked by the different people I dated. It was never like such a clear green light where every box is checked. Until then. And so it was like, okay, well, now what? Because I've already made the decision. So are we just supposed to keep going
Yeah.
to dinner?
So
Yeah.
good. I love
I could
this.
imagine after like debating back and forth about like these other
Yeah.
longer term relationships to finally meet someone where you're like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm in. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
But then it was only, I want to say it was like a month after that. Was it like a month after that?
Yeah, the Lord, maybe two, yeah,
Maybe.
a month or two
Hmm.
after that, the Lord, I just felt the Lord say, like, Dane, if you want to marry Carrie, like, you can do that. Like, I'm giving you, like, there's like a green light in my heart because it's both and, right?
Hmm.
It's a both and situation. So, I remember the moment where I was like, I think this is the girl I'm gonna marry, and I was
Hmm.
like, you know,
Hmm.
like I could feel that, right? Which was a good thing. And once that came about, I started to pursue like I started to think about like engagement and that whole process, and making that special for her and all that. But
Hmm.
um um I had to be there. We both have to be there,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Which
you
was
got to be real with
still,
yourself.
it was still within, like timeline wise, that was within 6 months of dating because first date was end of July and we
Yeah.
were looking at rings before the end of the year. So it was still somewhere around the holidays was when we finally started actually having we're both on the same page conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's funny because like, okay, so that part of the story, but then when it comes to like, uh, first, like person to say I love you, first kiss, like he caught me way off guard, beating me to the punch on both of those things.
I didn't set her up for success because I told her, I was like,
That's true,
I'm
you
not
did say
gonna
that.
kiss you until I like marry you, basically. Like
Yeah, so I
I
was like, it's off the table, no
Yeah,
problem, not even
but
thinking
she
about
was
She wasn't even
really pumped. She
thinking
was
about it.
trying. She was like, hey, or like I was like, I'm not gonna say I love you until it's like I actually, you know what I mean? Like I know it. We're like, 'cause that's the point about not going past the level of intimacy
it. Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
personally. I'm like, I'm not
Hmm.
gonna tell you I love you because I've done that in the past, and I was like, this is stupid.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
I had messed both of those things up in the past, and I was just like, I don't want to do that, you
Hmm.
know. So
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
my own
Yeah.
conviction, though.
Hmm.
So
So they were kind of
yeah.
off the table for me. I was like, oh, I'm not even gonna think about it, and then just out of the blue, on
I'm
both
like, hey, can I
occasions.
kiss you?
Yeah, I'm like, what?
She's like, yeah.
This is
but
so
but
good.
that was after I felt like the Lord said, hey, this is the person you're
Yeah,
gonna marry.
it was
You know what I
after.
mean? Like
Yeah.
both of those things
Mm,
were after.
yeah.
And engagement, I think I didn't say I love you until engagement.
No, it was before.
Was it?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was before.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Callie, did you have a question?
yeah. So, Dane, you had mentioned earlier, like the art of asking questions. I just was wondering
Ooh.
if you could unpack that a little bit more. Would love to hear it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good
Oh
one.
yeah. Okay. So I think any person, guy and girl, one of the most important skills you can learn is how to ask questions. And you don't need to be a genius. You can literally Google this. Like just have 5 to 10 questions in the back of your pocket that are differing levels of vulnerability and intimacy depending on the occasion. What this requires is intentionality and knowing who you are and being like, hey, setting the tone. So it does
Hmm.
require leadership for sure. Um, so like if we're in a group setting and we're just having small talk, I'm not usually here for it. Like sometimes I am, but like if it's 3 to 4 people or just one, it doesn't really matter the group size actually. I'm gonna ask you a few different questions, and so some of the ones that I found that have helped is like, um, tell me about a time that, or I'll say like over the past couple weeks, when have you been most proud of yourself?
Hmm.
Like, um, like
Hmm.
simple stuff that we did in grade school, right? Like, what's a high and a low of the past, like since I've seen you last,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
and then what you get to do is you get to lead the level of vulnerability because you're a leader, right? Like I believe leadership is simply influence, and everyone has influence. It just depends on what you're doing with that influence. So if I want it to be a vulnerable conversation, then I want to lead that way. So I'll usually say, hey,
Mm.
here's the question, like what's been a high and a low of the past, like month. And I'll be like, I'll start just to give you guys time to think. But in reality, I'm setting the level of vulnerability. So I might be like,
Mm.
yeah, like Kerry and I have had a really difficult time communicating in this area, or I'm really struggling with this thing that's been like really painful, or somebody told me something, and whatever the vulnerable thing is that I'm processing through or working through in that moment. Like I get to be the one that sets that tone. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's important. It's important to just like mix taking initiative, but then also like having empathy and like listening, and then asking like follow-up questions and stuff too. So as far as unpacking, Kalli, I think that the too long don't read version is Google or think about 5 questions that you can ask, type them in your phone, however you do that. And if you're with someone, like just try asking these questions and make sure that they're like a little bit deeper, something that like, hey, tell me about the last time you cried, or tell me about a time that you cried. And it could, that's very open-ended. They could be tears of joy or they could be tears of sadness. And so you're letting them choose, to give you their heart basically. And then you have to be really intentional to cultivate the vulnerability that they do give you. And if someone like doesn't reciprocate your own and isn't a safe place, you just make a note of that, and then you just ask questions later that are more surface level.
Love it. Thanks, Dane.
I feel like I'm like having a moment because I've experienced this firsthand from Dane like many times, but now I'm hearing like the what's going on behind it. But it is great, and he does it in such a seamless way, and I think it's even easy to take it for granted because you're like, oh, Dane's here, he'll guide this
facilitate.
conversation. Yeah, he'll facilitate a great conversation here. But it's servant leadership, I think, because you're deciding like, okay, I'm gonna, like you said, I'm gonna ask the question, I'm gonna set the tone with my own vulnerability, and then it allows for the connection to be built. And I've seen it be built in like even our life group. So appreciate that
That's
about you,
sweet.
Dane.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Andrea.
I'm trying to learn this quality from him because it's vulnerable too. Like to ask questions, I feel like it's vulnerable, at least for me, because I'm always afraid that people are going to be like, what a dumb question, or like people are going to like respond negatively to it. So whenever I hear Dane ask good questions, I'm like, man, I need to just have more confidence in asking people questions because I care enough to get to know them. I'm just afraid of rejection, so I don't always ask.
I just want to say Kerry is a great question asker. I know she just said that she would like to improve on it, but that was one of my first impressions of you, was like, oh my gosh, she asked such good questions, and follow-up questions too. That's how you know someone's actually listening when you answer.
Yes, so true.
As they ask follow-up questions. So you guys
Yeah.
together are going to be like a power couple in that area. Yeah.
Let's
Question
go.
askers.
We love it. We love
Yeah.
it.
And Becca and I actually, when we talk about you behind your back, that's one of the things we say is, man, Kerry
Perfect.
always asks such good questions.
Perfect. That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
that's how you're being experienced out here.
But okay, to add on to that part, like you guys both, like you and Becca are a really good example of like receiving questions well, because that's important too, right? Like even in the dating world or as friends, like if you're on a date with a guy, he's asking you a question and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, that's a weird question. Like you're planting seeds of insecurity in him, right? Versus being
Yeah.
like, wow, what a great question. Like,
Yeah.
so I feel like you guys have done a really good job at like kind of affirming that in me because you always respond so graciously, even if I'm like, I don't really know how to word this, but this is what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
So that's just a little tip to receive people's questions with grace because they're going out on a limb by asking them.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah.
good.
I'm always like, I feel like I know myself better at the end of this conversation, which is cool. Okay, well, guys, this has been amazing. I want to wrap it up
Yay.
just by asking if you have any last tips for the Christians who date out there. They're still navigating the dating world. Like, is there anything you would say to people?
Go ahead, babe.
Oh no. You go first.
Sure. Yeah, there is. I've been thinking about this most of the podcast because, specifically for the guys, I mean, girls too, I mean, this applies to everyone, but I think the reality is when you are assessing, and I use that word intentionally, if you want to marry someone or not, you have to ask yourself this question. The question is, if this person never changes a day in their life and they're at their worst, am I willing to say yes to them? If the answer to that question is no, then you need to move on.
Mhm.
Like if you can't say yes to someone when they're at their worst, or when maybe they're just at their regular, that's especially a
Mhm.
chance to say no. That's when you should say no to
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
right? Like I had a conversation with my buddy and he was basically asking me this question. And that's the advice I gave him. And that's the advice I give to a lot of guys. And because I don't really talk to girls about this, I guess, but I would say the same for girls as well. You need to be really honest with yourself and make sure that you can say yes to this person, because marriage is messy. Like it gets really hard, just like dating's hard, just like life is hard, just like being single is hard. It's just a different type of hard. All are hard. They're just different types of hard, right? And so if you're not able to confidently say, yeah, I'm going to choose this person, then that's a great opportunity to peace out and to say, you know what, like I need to be able to say yes to this person. So that's my advice to guys, to girls. Make sure that you can say yes in the midst of a messy and difficult like situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
That's
means you
like
have to date
really.
them long enough.
Yes. Okay, Andrea, I want to say one more thing on this. You do. We did 6 months and then got engaged. Like I actually would recommend a year, to be honest with you, to give the time to actually have the conversations and see the person when they're at their worst. And you can actually assess that, unless you just have like a word from the Lord or whatever. Like I think having a little bit more time is always like, not always, but is a good thing normally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just going to add, I think like, just like with my story, but a lot of people stay in relationships longer than they should and spend a lot of time and energy and effort talking to their friends and family about like, yeah, I'm just hoping that like, he'll come around in this area or she'll change in this area. And those relationships, I mean, I have friends that have dated someone for 7 years, or it's like,
Wow.
they can be endless. And so to Dane's point, like it's so important to be like, no, I have to choose someone with like trusting God's timing, that like God knew I was going to meet them at this point in time and this is where they're at right now. They might always be in this place. They might be a way better person in 10 years. They might be a way worse person in 10 years, but this is where I met them at. And so am I willing to say yes to them as they are right now? Like that's the most important question, because if you're not willing to say yes to that, then there's no use in dating them where they're at, because you're already seeing it through a lens of you're not accepting them as they are, and they're going to sense that and they're going to feel that. So yeah, I agree with that. And I guess my last tip would also be just being like open to the process of what God is doing in you. And that can be true if it's going on one date with someone and they trigger something in you and you're like, never want to see them again. But instead of just writing that experience off, being like, okay, what was God doing by even crossing my path with that person for 2 hours? Like there was intent behind it. It's not just mindless. And same with like longer term relationships too. I think again, it can be so easy to look at the other person and assess if they're good enough, assess if they check your boxes, constantly be like assessing them. But it's equally, if not more important, to be like assessing your own heart in the process and like, what is God highlighting that I need to grow from what this person is reflecting back to me? What are ways that I can care for them better? Like, because at the end of the day, it's that heart posture that sets you up for like a successful marriage. Like, those
Yeah.
skills that you start in dating, you carry them into marriage. So if you're constantly like trying to change the other person in dating, you're going to do that all throughout your marriage too. But if you're constantly trying to look inward and like grow with the Lord and ask the other person to reflect back to you, like, what can I do better? And how can I love you better? And what ways am I being self-centered? If you're asking those questions and looking to refine your own heart with the Lord, then you're setting yourself up for a lot more success within marriage itself, because that's a lifelong process for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
good. Because the Lord is going to find a way to bring sanctification into your life. So
Always.
you may as well just embrace it.
It never
Yes.
ends.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, that's one thing we said a few times is like God cares about the person you're becoming. So, yeah, whether or not, you date this person for an afternoon or it turns into marriage, like the sanctification through relationships is going to be consistent in your life. Like that is going to be the Lord's always going to be shaping you into the person that he's created you to be. So
That's good.
I love that, Kerry.
So good.
Okay, any last thoughts over here? Kalli, Lauren?
This is great.
I'm just grateful. I didn't know Dana and Kerry at all. So it's just been really nice getting to hear your guys' stories. And you guys are obviously just really quality, wonderful people. And it's just, you guys have so much wisdom and it's felt. And I'm excited for people to get to listen to this because there's so much wisdom in it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, you guys were so encouraging. I feel like I had like some practical things I got to take from you all today that I'm like, oh, I can play this literally once we get off the Zoom. And so that just felt so nice. I was like, oh, this is like so practical, some of the things that you shared.
Yes.
And it's very real. And Kerry, the word I got for you, because it's like funny, the stories about you, like this guy with all the money or whatever. I was like, the two words I heard from the Lord was like, she's a woman of fine taste and she loves beauty. She loves beauty and a woman of fine taste. And so that's, anyways, I don't know. I was just like giggling.
It's true.
That's good stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
It's true.
It is true.
Yeah.
I love
That's
it.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
literally
thanks for
last
having
time.
us on, guys.
Oh, yeah, of course. I was just going to say last time I was at their house, Kerry like brought out this wine from Spain. And she's like, I'm pregnant, but do you guys want this? Like, I can't drink it. And Becca and I are like, well, sure. Pour us a glass.
We'll help you out.
So, yes.
I'm like, let me just be your sommelier. So you can experience
she was amazing. Yeah, we were like, wow, we got to come over here more often. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for coming on. I advocated hardcore to have you guys on the podcast because I was like, they're so intentional, and both of you, like, just talking to you and hearing you share about your own lives like challenges me to live with more like intentionality and courage. And so I want other people to also be challenged and encouraged and yeah, just to see like what could be on the other side of being more intentional. So love you both. Thanks for coming. And
love you.
Yeah,
we
Kalli
love you
and
guys
Lauren.
too.
Bye.
Love you guys too.
I was like, what are we supposed to
Oh,
do?
I don't know. I was like, she's picking us up, I guess.
No.
So. I'm like,
I just didn't want you to feel left out. I just told Kerry and Dane I love them.
You
so
know, we value ourselves and we feel good.
Yeah.
Good.
We know what you
Okay.
bring to the table.
They totally do. Yeah. Okay. Well, all of you out there, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Great.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.